Picture this, a huge fancy party. 300 of the most powerful people in the city, all dressed up, all holding fancy drinks. And then everything just stops, not because the music stopped, not because someone fell down, but because one woman just did something that nobody, nobody expected. Right in the middle of Grand U Manor, under those big sparkly lights, Layla Ashford, the beautiful girlfriend of the most powerful man in the whole city, raised one cold finger and pointed it straight at Sam, a waiter who was just trying to do his job. She was about to fire him. Right there, in front of everyone. Every single person in that room froze. The waiters, the bartenders, the security guys at the doors. Even the event coordinator forgot how to breathe. They all knew what was coming. Layla always ruined someone's night when she got angry. And tonight, she was very angry. But then, something happened that no one expected. A voice cut right through that silence. Not loud, not rude. Just calm, like a river that won't change its path no matter what. It was Sophie, the NEW event helper. A girl who had been working there for only 3 days. A girl that nobody even noticed before. A girl that everyone thought would just keep her head down and stay quiet. But Sophie was standing there, back straight, eyes calm, refusing to look away. Layla hissing, "What did you just say to me?" Sophie didn't back down. Her posture stayed strong, her eyes stayed respectful, but unbreakable, and what nobody realized yet was that Marcus Grand, you himself, the man who owned all of this, he had just stepped back inside from the balcony after finishing a phone call. He stopped. He felt the tension in the air right away. He slowly turned his head, and he saw everything. His girlfriend was trying to humiliate a working man, and a young woman was standing in the way. Marcus didn't move. He didn't speak. He just watched, and something inside him started to question. Everything. Layla screaming, "You're fired. Pack your things and get out, right now." But Sophie's voice didn't shake. "Sophie, ma'am, please let me explain what really happened." And that moment, just that one moment, was about to change everything. Then a gasp swept through the whole room, because someone was walking up behind Marcus. Someone no one expected to be there tonight. Someone whose presence was about to turn this whole party into a moment of truth. It was Grandma Rose, Marcus's grandmother, 78 years old, pure silver white hair pulled into a neat bun, eyes sharp as a razor, an oak cane in her hand. She walked slowly, but every single step echoed through that silent hall like a war drum. Nobody dared breathe too hard, because everybody in that room knew exactly who Grandma Rose was. She was the woman who raised Marcus after his mom passed away. She was the only person in the entire world that Marcus Grand, you the most powerful man in the city, truly respected. When she talked, he listened. When she gave an order, he followed not out of fear, but out of the deepest love a grandson could ever have for his grandmother. And now this powerful woman walked right to the center of the room, eyes locked on Layla like she could see straight through her soul. Marcus, surprised, "You came." Grandma Rose didn't even look at him. She just gave a tiny nod and kept walking forward. The crowd split apart for her, like water moving for a ship, without anyone even telling them to. Layla went completely stiff, like a statue. Her finger was still pointed at Sam, but her whole body had gone cold. She had met Grandma Rose twice before. Both times were short and polite, because Layla had been on her best behavior. But this time was different. This time, Grandma Rose had shown up with no warning. This time, she had seen everything. Grandma Rose stopped 3 steps in front of Layla. She said nothing at first. She just looked her up and down, with eyes cold as winter. Then she looked at Sam, still trembling. Then at Sophie, still standing strong. And then she turned back to Layla, and she spoke. Her voice wasn't loud, but in that silence, every single word rang out like a bell. "Grandma Rose, so, this is the future wife of my grandson." It wasn't a question, it was a verdict. Layla swallowed hard, her mouth went dry. She tried to smile, but her lips just twisted into something awful. Layla voiced too high. "Grandma Rose, I didn't know you were coming. What a nice surprise. Grandma Rose didn't smile, didn't nod, just tilted her head, like she was studying something strange. Grandma Rose, a surprise. I don't think I'm the one who's surprised here. I think it's the guests. They're surprised to see how you treat the people who work here. Layla went pale. All the color drained from her face right in front of everyone. She opened her mouth, but Grandma Rose raised her hand. Just one small movement. That was all it took to shut Layla up completely. Grandma Rose, I've seen everything, child. I saw you point your hand in a man's face over a tiny mistake. I saw you ready to destroy someone's life in the blink of an eye. I saw you standing here, in front of 300 guests, acting like you own this place. She paused, Grandma Rose firm, but you don't own this place, Layla. You're a guest here, and guests don't get to fire anyone. Layla trembled. For the first time in her life, she had no idea what to say. She looked over at Marcus, hoping he'd jump in and defend her. But Marcus just stood there, silent, and his eyes, they were no longer looking at her with love, they were full of doubt. Disappointment, the look of a man who just saw something he never wanted to believe. Then, out of nowhere, Sam dropped to his knees. His knees hit the marble floor with a loud crack. He didn't care about the pain. He didn't care about the 300 eyes staring at him. He only knew he was about to lose everything. Sam, voice breaking, please don't do this. My daughter is in the hospital. She's only 12 years old. She has leukemia. The doctor said if we don't have the money for surgery this month, she won't make it. I need this job. I need every dollar I earn. Please, I'm begging you. Tears rolled down Sam's face. The tears of a desperate father. A man willing to give up every piece of his dignity just to save his little girl. The entire hall went dead silent. 300 of the most powerful people in the city, people who had seen blood and pain and hard things, they couldn't look away. Sophie stood a few steps away, and her eyes burned with tears. She understood exactly what Sam was feeling, because she lived inside that same pain every single day. But Layla just stood there looking down at Sam. With eyes cold as ice, not a single flicker of feeling, not a drop of mercy. Her face was still beautiful. Perfect, even, but it was the beauty of cruelty, the beauty of a heart that had turned to stone a long time ago. Layla, cold, almost laughing, your daughter's sick, then you should have been even more careful at work. You spilled wine on my dress. This dress costs $50,000. Do you know what you just did, or do you want me to take it out of your paycheck? Oh wait, you don't have a paycheck anymore, do you? Those words were like knives straight into Sam's chest. He bowed his head. His whole body shook with sobs. The sound of his crying echoed through the hall. Raw, hopeless, and Marcus watched it all, and for the first time in 3 years of knowing Layla. He saw her real face, not the gentle, graceful woman he thought he knew. Not the girl who always smiled at the right moment and made him feel like the luckiest guy alive, but a cold, ruthless woman who could crush people without even blinking. He started to remember things. Employees who quit without explaining why. The fear in people's eyes whenever Layla walked into a room. Whispers that always stopped the second he appeared. All those little pieces were clicking together now. And the picture they made, it was nothing like the one he thought he knew. Marcus walked over to Sam and helped him up off the floor. His voice was low and steady. Marcus, you won't be fired. Sam looked up at him, eyes red and shocked, barely believing what he just heard. Layla spun around. Her mouth fell open, but Marcus didn't even look at her. Marcus, your daughter will be taken care of. I'll handle it. Then he turned to Layla, and his eyes were colder than she had ever seen them. Marcus, we'll talk later. Layla opened her mouth to say something, but right at that moment, her phone started ringing. Unknown number. She hesitated. Something inside her already felt afraid. She answered, Layla, hello. A man's voice came through, cold as ice, slow as a death sentence. Caller, justice has finally found you. Victoria. Layla froze. Her face drained of color in an instant. Her eyes went wide. Her hand shook so bad she almost dropped the phone. Victoria. Someone had just called her by that name. The name she had buried 5 years ago. The name she thought no one would ever say again. Her real name, Layla, trembling, Who are you? What do you want? On the other end, just a cold, bitter laugh. Soaked in hatred, then the call ended. Layla stood there holding the phone, white as paper. She couldn't move. She couldn't think. She only knew one thing. The past she had been running from had finally caught up with her. Marcus saw everything. He saw the change in her face. He saw pure terror in her eyes. He saw her hand shaking like a leaf. And he knew that call wasn't normal. Victoria, he had heard that name. The name the man on the phone had used for Layla. But his Layla was Layla Ashford, not Victoria, so who was Victoria? The room started to hum with whispers. What just happened? Who called her? Why is she so scared? Layla knew she had to do something, say something. Take control, but before she could even open her mouth, her phone buzzed again, a text message from the same unknown number. She looked down at the screen. She didn't want to read it, but her eyes were pulled right to those words. Text message, you think running to Chicago means you escaped. I'm here now. Boston hasn't forgotten you. The phone slipped from Layla's hand. It hit the marble floor with a loud crack that echoed through the whole room. Layla was shaking all over. Her face was paper white. Her lips were moving, but no sound came out. Boston. That word hit her like a blade. Boston, the place she had tried to forget for 5 years. Boston, the place that held the biggest sin of her entire life. Marcus stepped forward. He bent down and picked up the phone. Layla wanted to stop him. She wanted to snatch it away. But her feet felt glued to the floor. She could only watch as Marcus read those words on the screen. Time seemed to stop. Marcus read slowly. His face showed nothing, but his eyes darkened, like a sky filling up with storm clouds. When he looked up at Layla, that look was colder than anything she had ever seen. Marcus slow and heavy. Layla, what happened in Boston? Layla opened her mouth. She wanted to say something. Invent a perfect story the way she always had. But no words came. Fear had wrapped itself around her throat. Marcus, each word sharp. I'll ask you again. What happened in Boston, and who is Victoria? Layla flinched at that name. He had heard it. He knew. Layla stammering. He's a crazy person. I don't know him. I swear I don't know who he is. Marcus looked into her eyes. Into the panic, into all that fear. And he knew she was lying. Just like she probably had been lying for a long, long time. Marcus raised one hand, a small signal, but every security man in the room understood it immediately. Every door slammed shut. The sound of metal locks snapping into place rang out across the room. Marcus, no one leaves, not until I say so. 300 guests stood frozen. These were powerful people. Bosses, politicians, business people. But in this room in front of Marcus Grandview, they were just guests, and nobody dared argue. Layla looked around desperately. No open doors, guards at every exit. 300 unfamiliar eyes staring at her. There was no way out. Marcus walked toward her, each step slow. Each step steady, like a countdown. He stopped right in front of her. His eyes cut right through her. Marcus, tell me, who is Victoria? Nothing. Marcus lower. What happened in Boston? Still nothing. Marcus like a hammer. Speak, right now. Layla felt her knees go weak. She felt her whole body collapsing from the inside. 5 years. 5 years she had built a new life, a new name, a perfect story, and now it was all about to fall apart. In one single night, but Layla wasn't the kind of woman who just gave up. She had survived this long by lying, blaming others, and turning things around. So her eyes swept the room, looking for someone to point the finger at, and they landed on Sophie. Standing quietly in the corner, humble as always, Layla thought, she started all of this. She talked back to me in front of everyone. She's the weakest one here, and Layla was going to destroy her. Layla pointing, shouting, it's her. She's the one behind all of this. Every head in the room snapped toward Sophie. Sophie stood frozen, completely shocked. Layla shrieking, she's a spy. Someone planted her here to ruin me. She's the one who contacted that man. She set this whole thing up to destroy me. Murmurs everywhere. Guests looking at each other, then at Sophie, then back at Layla. No one knew who to believe. Sophie stood there, feeling hundreds of eyes on her like needles. She felt the suspicion filling the air. She felt herself being turned into the scapegoat for something she had nothing to do with. But Sophie wasn't afraid. She had been through too much unfairness in her life to be afraid now. She only needed to speak the truth. Sophie lifted her head and looked straight into Layla's eyes, clear and calm. Sophie, steady and gentle. "Ma'am, I have only been working here for 3 days. 3 days. I don't know anything about Boston. I don't know anything about that phone call. I didn't even know who you were until I walked through that door." Layla shrieking, "She's lying. Don't believe her." But Sophie didn't flinch. She just stood there, back straight, chin up, eyes forward. She didn't beg anyone to trust her. The truth was simple and plain. 3 days. Nobody could set up a big conspiracy in 3 days. Marcus stood between the two women and watched. He looked at Layla, panicking, screaming, throwing blame like someone trapped with no way out. Then he looked at Sophie, calm, steady, meeting every accusation without cracking. One side was chaos, the other was stillness. One side was blind accusation, the other was simple truth. Marcus didn't need long to figure out who was lying. "Marcus, enough." One word, the whole hall went quiet. "Marcus, you won't blame anyone else. Now you'll answer my question. Boston, Victoria, what's the truth?" Layla broke. Her knees hit the marble hard. She couldn't hold herself up anymore. Layla whispering, "Please, not here, not in front of everyone. Marcus, here, in front of everyone, right now." She had no other choice. Layla voice breaking, "All right, I'll talk. I'll tell you everything." The entire hall waited. 300 people, not one sound. "Layla, my real name isn't Layla Ashford." A wave of whispers rolled through the room. "Layla, my real name is Victoria, Victoria Ashford. It had all been a fake name, a disguise, a lie stretched across years." Marcus said nothing. His face stayed cold as stone, but in his eyes, something had just died. Trust. Love, everything he had ever given this woman. Victoria kept going. Each word dragged up from the deepest, darkest place inside her. "Victoria, 5 years ago, I lived in Boston. I worked for a big financial company. I was an assistant to the top executives." She paused. "Swallowed hard, Victoria. I stole money from the company, $2 million. A gasp swept through the hall. $2 million. But that wasn't even the worst part." Victoria barely whispering, "When the company found out the money was missing, I blamed someone else, the chief financial officer. His name was Daniel Freeman. He was a good man. He trusted me. He treated me like a little sister, and I made up fake evidence to frame him. I lied to the police. I lied in court. I destroyed his life." Tears poured down Victoria's face. "Victoria, he was fired, called a thief. His wife left and took their child. He lost everything, his home, his family, his name, because of me. And I knew he was innocent. I knew, but I didn't stop. I was too scared, too selfish. I only thought about myself." The hall was dead silent. Not one person moved. Not one whisper. The beautiful, charming, perfect woman they had all admired was a thief, a liar. Someone who had ruined an innocent man's life to save herself. "Victoria, after everything settled, I took the stolen money and ran to Chicago. I spent 2 years wiping my tracks and building a fake reputation before becoming Layla Ashford, an orphan girl who built herself from nothing." A short, bitter laugh escaped her. "Victoria, it was all lies, every single word. I didn't build anything with my own hands. I built my new life with stolen money, with someone else's tears, with the suffering of an innocent man." Marcus stood like he had turned to stone, the woman he loved, the woman he was going to marry, the woman he had trusted more than anyone in the world. "It was all a performance." Marcus' voice low and heavy. "You told me you built your career with your own hands. You said you admired fairness. You said you hated people who bully the weak." He looked down at Victoria, eyes cold enough to freeze the air. "Marcus, but you are the bully. You're the one who crushed an innocent person. You are everything you said you hated." And then the grand doors flew open with a boom. Light poured in from the hallway outside, and standing there in the doorway was a man. He was about 50, 5 years old. wild white hair that hadn't seen a comb in months, a gaunt face, hollow cheeks, skin that looked like it had been carrying too much suffering for too long, an old, faded suit, cracked leather shoes covered in road dust. But the scariest thing about him wasn't how he looked. It was his eyes. Red, wild, packed with hatred and pain that had been stored up for years. The eyes of a man who had lost everything. The eyes of someone who had spent his whole life looking for justice. 2 guards rushed toward him immediately. But Marcus raised his hand. Stop. He wanted to know who this was, and deep down, he already felt like he knew. The man walked into the hall, each step heavy. His red eyes searched the room, looking for someone. Man raspy, trembling. Where is she? Where is Victoria Ashford? That name, like lightning. Victoria saw the man, and she screamed, a scream of pure terror, the scream of someone who had just seen a ghost from their past, the scream of someone who knew that judgment had finally arrived. Victoria stumbling back. No, it can't be, not you, not you. The man stopped. His eyes locked onto Victoria, and everyone in that room could feel the burning hatred in his stare. 5 years of suffering, 5 years of loss, 5 years of being blamed for something he never did. Daniel Freeman, terrifyingly calm. Victoria Ashford, I finally found you. Marcus didn't need to ask. He already knew who this was. He had heard the story from Victoria's own mouth just minutes ago. The broken man walking toward her was Daniel Freeman, the man she had framed, the man who had lost his job, his wife, his child, his home, everything, because of one lie. Daniel moved toward Victoria, step by step, slow but full of weight. Victoria backed away until her back hit the wall. Nowhere left to go. Daniel, 5 years. 5 years I searched for you. 5 years I lived in hell because of you. 5 years I lost everything because of you. He stopped a few steps away. His eyes filled with tears, but not tears of sadness. Tears because after all those years of suffering, he had finally found the one who destroyed his life. Daniel, do you know how I've lived? Do you have any idea? Victoria said nothing. She could only cry and shake. Daniel took a long, slow breath, and then he started to talk, to tell everyone what he had been through. Daniel, when you framed me, I didn't believe it at first. I thought the truth would come out. I thought justice would be on my side, but it wasn't. You faked the evidence too perfectly. You lied too well, and I, a man of 50 with 30 years of honest work behind me, was convicted as a thief. He paused, swallowed hard. Daniel, I was fired immediately. No one wanted to hear me explain. No one wanted to believe me. I became an outcast overnight. 30 years of dedication. 30 years of building my name. All of it turned to smoke because of one lie from you. Victoria sobbed, but Daniel didn't stop. He needed to say this. He needed the world to know. Daniel, my wife didn't believe me. After 25 years together, she looked at me like a stranger. She said she couldn't live with a thief. She took our daughter and left. My daughter was only 15 when it happened. She was my pride, the reason I got up every morning. And one day she looked at me with disappointment in her eyes and said she was ashamed to have a father like me. Daniel's voice cracked. Daniel, that was the day my heart died. The hall was silent as paper, many of the 300 guests were crying. These were powerful people, people used to the hard side of the world, but even they couldn't stay untouched by Daniel's story. Daniel, after I lost my job and my family, I lost my home too. No one would hire a man convicted of stealing. No one would give me a chance. I lived on the streets of Boston for 3 years. 3 years sleeping under bridges. 3 years begging for food. 3 years being looked at like garbage. He looked down at his hands. Rough, worn hands. Daniel, there were nights I stood on a bridge, looking down at the black water, and wondered if jumping would be easier. There were nights I held a knife against my wrist and wondered if one cut would end it all. Victoria crying out, no, please stop. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Daniel, I didn't die because I wanted the truth. I wanted to prove I was innocent. I wanted to find you and take back justice. 5 years I lived in hell because of you. 5 years I lost Everything because of you. 5 years I searched everywhere for you, and today, I finally found you." Victoria collapsed at Daniel's feet, tears flooding her face. Victoria sobbing, "I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. I know it's unforgivable, but I'll make it right. Anything you want, money, your name cleared, anything, I'll do it, please." Daniel looked down at her, and he let out a laugh, bitter, painful, almost like a sob. "Daniel, make it right. You say you'll make it right." He leaned down and looked straight into her eyes. "Daniel, can you give me back 5 years of my life? Can you give me back the nights I slept under bridges? Can you give me back my family? Can you give me back my daughter? Can you give me back the honor I lost? Can you give me back what you stole?" Victoria couldn't answer. She only shook her head. No, she couldn't. Nobody could. What was lost was gone forever. Sophie stood in the corner, watching it all. Tears on her own cheeks. She understood Daniel's pain. She knew what it felt like to be blamed and not believed. To have the whole world turn its back on you. She had lived through that in the orphanage. She quietly pulled a handkerchief from her pocket, walked over to Daniel and held it out to him. She didn't say a word, just a small, quiet gesture, but full of understanding. Daniel looked at Sophie, surprised. Then he took the handkerchief and wiped his face, Daniel whispering, "Thank you." Sophie just gave a small nod and stepped back. She didn't need thanks. She only wanted him to know he wasn't alone, that someone saw his pain, that justice, even this late, had finally arrived. Marcus had listened to every single word Daniel said, and with every sentence, the disappointment inside him sank a little deeper. The anger inside him grew a little bigger, not at Daniel, at the woman he had once trusted with his heart. He walked up to Daniel, stopped right in front of him, and looked straight into the eyes of a man who had endured too much injustice. "Marcus, how much was taken from you?" Daniel, worn out, $2 million, "but I don't need money." He looked at Marcus with tired, pain-filled eyes. "Daniel, money can't give me back what I lost. Money can't erase 5 years of hell. Money can't return my family, my daughter, the life I had." He took a slow breath. "Daniel, what I need is my honor. I need people to know I'm innocent. I need my name cleared. I need the world to know the truth. That's all I want." Marcus nodded slowly. He understood more than anyone in that room, because he too was a man who valued honor above everything. In his world, honor was the most precious thing a person could have. Lose money, you can earn it back. Lose a home, you can build another. But lose your honor, nothing can replace it. "Marcus, you'll have both." Daniel looked up, barely daring to believe what he just heard. "Marcus, both money and honor, you'll have both. I'll repay every single cent she took from you. $2 million from my own accounts, and I'll make sure the truth becomes public. I have the best lawyers in the city. They'll help you reopen the case. They'll prove you innocent in court. They'll make sure your name is cleared in the eyes of everyone." He paused. His eyes went ice, cold for just a second as they flicked toward Victoria. "Marcus, and she will answer to the law for what she did to you. For every year of hell she caused you. She will pay for it." Daniel stood there, stunned. For 5 years, he had knocked on every agency door, every courthouse, every lawyer's office. He had begged people to listen, tried to shout the truth at the world, but no one believed him. No one cared about a homeless man with a story that sounded like madness. And now Marcus Grandview, the most powerful man in Chicago, was standing in front of him saying he believed him, that he would help him, that he would bring him justice. Tears started spilling down Daniel's face. Not tears of suffering, tears of release, of hope. Tears of a man who was finally seen, finally heard, finally believed. Daniel, voice cracking, You believe me? Marcus, I believe you, and I'll make sure the whole world believes you too." Daniel couldn't hold it back anymore. He cried like a child, as if all the pain, all the injustice, all those desperate, sleepless nights of 5 years were finally pouring out. This was the first time in 5 years someone had believed him, the first time someone stood on his side. Daniel, broken sobs, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Marcus placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Marcus, you don't need to thank me. This is just the right thing to do. Justice should have found you 5 years ago. I'm only helping it arrive late rather than never." Grandma Rose stood behind them and gave a quiet nod, pride in her eyes as she looked at her grandson. This was the Marcus she had raised. This was the man she had always believed in. Marcus turned to Victoria. Still on the floor, still crying, still shaking. She had once been the most beautiful woman he knew. She had once been the one he wanted to spend his whole life with, but looking at her now, he only saw a stranger, a ghost of everything he had once believed was real. He stepped in front of her. The burning anger was gone. All that was left was exhaustion, emptiness, the feeling of a man who has just lost something that mattered. "Marcus, Victoria, our engagement ends here." Those words rang through the hall like a funeral bell. Victoria screaming, "No. Gabriel, Marcus, no. You can't do this. I love you. I truly love you." She crawled toward him, grabbing onto his leg with both arms like someone drowning, grabbing the last rope in reach. "Victoria, I'll change. I swear I'll change. I'll become whoever you want me to be. I'll do anything, anything. Just don't leave me. I know I was wrong. I know I did terrible things. But I can't change. I swear to God I can change." Marcus looked down at her, clinging to him like that, and he felt nothing, no anger, no pity, no hate, just a vast, hollow emptiness. He gently peeled her fingers from his leg. "One finger at a time, slow, final. Marcus, you should have changed before you hurt people, not now, not when you've been caught, not when you have no other choice." And then he turned away. He couldn't look at her anymore. Then something nobody expected happened. Grandma Rose slowly walked over to Victoria and knelt down beside her. An 80-year-old woman kneeling beside the one who had lied to her grandson. The whole room held its breath. Grandma Rose, voice gentle, "Child, I won't defend what you've done. The things you did cannot be denied. But I believe there is still time to change. A person can fall, but they can also stand. Again, you can become better than this." Victoria stared at her, tears still flowing without end. Grandma Rose firm, "But before you can change, you have to face what you've done. You have to pay for your sins. You have to make things right for the people you hurt. That is the first step. And it is not one you can skip." Victoria nodded, too drained to speak. She understood. She knew what was coming. And she accepted it. Marcus's lawyer was called forward. A written agreement was drawn up right there. Victoria would repay every cent she stole. She would work with investigators. She would testify in court to clear Daniel's name. She would accept whatever punishment the law decided. Victoria signed it. Her hand was shaking so bad the signature was barely readable. But she signed anyway because it was the only thing she could do. 2 guards came in, gentle but firm, and helped Victoria to her feet. They would take her out of the estate, out of Marcus's life, out of everything she had built on lies. Before she left, Victoria stopped. She turned and looked at Marcus one last time, eyes red, face pale. But there was something in her gaze now, more real and honest than anything he had ever seen from her before. "Victoria, Marcus, I truly love you. You might not believe anything I ever said. You might think it was all lies, but the love I had for you was real. That was the only thing that wasn't a lie." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. "Marcus, I wish you had shown that love through honesty instead of lies." Victoria closed her eyes. One last tear slid down her cheek. Then she let the guards lead her away. The grand doors opened. Hallway light spilled in. Victoria stepped through and walked into the darkness waiting on the other side. She didn't look back. The doors closed behind her, a dry, final sound like a book snapping shut. A chapter was over. The party ended in silence. No more music, no more laughter, no more polite handshakes. 300 guests filed out one by one, carrying with them the shocking story they had just witnessed. The manor grew hollow. The chandeliers still burned bright, but the light felt colder now. Marcus stood alone on the balcony for about an hour, staring out into the dark garden. Not speaking, not moving, just thinking about 3 years he had spent loving a lie. Then he turned back inside. The hall was almost empty. The staff were quietly cleaning up, moving in silence, like they were afraid to disturb the heavy air. And then he saw her, Sophie, in the far corner of the hall, alone, quietly stacking chairs, no help from anyone. No complaints, just working like tonight had been any ordinary night. Marcus walked toward her. Evelyn Sophie heard the footsteps, looked up, and stopped when she saw it was him. "Sophie, sir, do you need something?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He just looked at her, 27 years old. Dark brown hair tied neatly back, green eyes clear as an autumn lake, a face that was tired, but still lit up by something unbreakable. She was small. She had nothing, but she had something that Victoria, for all her beauty and money, had never had. Real dignity, not the kind you buy, not the kind you fake, the real kind. "Marcus, you changed everything today." Sophie confused. "Sir, I don't understand." Marcus took one step closer. "Marcus, if you hadn't spoken up for Sam, we never would have seen Victoria's true face. If you hadn't stood your ground, I would have kept being deceived. If it weren't for you, Daniel Freeman would never have been cleared." He looked right into her eyes. "Marcus, you changed everything with one decision, with the courage to tell the truth." "Sophie, sir, I didn't do anything special. I only did what was right. Anyone with a conscience would have done the same." Marcus smiled. A small smile, the first one since the night began. "Marcus, that's exactly what makes you special." He turned toward the window for a moment. "Looking somewhere far away, Marcus, my mother passed away when I was very young. But there's something she said that I never forgot." Sophie went quiet. "Listening, Marcus," she said, "a good person isn't someone with power, money, or fame. A good person is someone who uses their voice to protect those who don't have a voice." He turned back to Sophie. "Marcus, today you did exactly that. You used your voice to protect Sam, a man who was about to lose everything. You stood up in front of 300 powerful people, in front of a woman who could have destroyed you with a snap of her fingers. You had nothing in your hands, but you had courage, and that courage changed everything." Sophie felt her eyes sting. She wasn't used to being praised. She wasn't used to someone actually seeing what she did. Her whole life she had been overlooked, abandoned, forgotten. But the most powerful man in the city was looking at her like she mattered. "Sophie, thank you, but I truly didn't do anything special. I just couldn't stand there while someone was being treated unfairly. I know that feeling. I know that pain, and I don't want anyone to have to go through it." Marcus nodding. "And that is exactly why I respect you, Sophie. Now, let me tell you a little about Sophie. About who she really was, because what happened that night, it didn't come from nowhere. Sophie had been on the job for only 3 days. And on her very first day, an older worker had quietly pulled her aside. Older worker whispering, "Kid, let me give you one piece of advice. Stay away from Miss Layla." "Sophie, who's Miss Layla?" Older worker, the boss's girlfriend. "She looks sweet, but don't let it fool you. When he's not around, she's a devil. Never argue with her. Never look her in the eyes. Never do anything that makes her notice you. If she does, you'll regret it." Sophie nodded, but she wasn't afraid. She had lived through the hell of a cold, cruel orphanage. She had lived through hungry days on the streets. A mean, rich woman was nothing compared to what she had already survived. Sophie Sinclair was orphaned at 5 years old. A car accident in a storm took both her parents in one single night. She and her little sister, Maya, only 2 at the time, were sent to an orphanage. Sophie still remembered the nights she went to bed weak with hunger because she was being punished. She remembered the beatings for the crime of crying when she missed her mom. She remembered the head matron, cold eyes, cruel smile, who turned her childhood into one long nightmare. But the most painful thing of all, when Sophie was 10 years old, Maya was adopted by another family. They split the sisters apart, didn't even let Sophie say goodbye. They just arrived, signed the papers, and took Maya away like she was an object. Sophie cried for months. She swore that one day she would find her sister again, no matter what it cost. At 16, Sophie ran away from the orphanage. She drifted through the city, washing dishes, cleaning offices, handing out flyers, any job she could get. No degree, no family, nothing but her hands and her iron will. But she survived, she fought, she hoped, and then 2 years ago, a miracle happened. Sophie found Maya again. Her sister, now 22, living alone after the family that adopted her, went broke and abandoned her. But the joy of finding her was quickly shadowed by terrible news. Maya had a heart condition she was born with. She needed surgery. The cost was $200,000 for two orphaned girls with nothing. That number felt like a mountain they could never climb. From that day on, Sophie worked without stopping. 3 jobs at once, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, no days off, no time for herself, only one goal. Save Maya, and the job at the Grandview estate was part of that plan. Every night, Sophie came home to their tiny one-room apartment in the roughest part of town. Walls stained by damp, a window that wouldn't close all the way, but it was home, because it was where Sophie and Maya still had each other. Maya would be lying on the narrow bed pushed into the corner, thin and pale, lips drained of color. The heart condition was getting worse. The doctor had said she needed surgery within 6 months. If not, her heart wouldn't hold. Maya, you're back. How's the new job? Sophie, it's good. The pay is better than I expected. She lied. She always lied, so Maya wouldn't worry. After Maya fell asleep, Sophie would take out her savings book and stare at the number. $15,000. That was everything she had after 2 whole years of working herself to the bone. 15,000 out of 200,000. Still 180. 5,000 short. Tears would slide down Sophie's face as she looked at that number. She would set the book down and look at her sister sleeping so peaceful, so innocent, so deserving of life. Then she'd kneel beside the bed, hold Maya's hand and whisper, voice breaking but steady, "Sophie, I'll save you, no matter what. I swear I'll save you." She didn't know how. She didn't know where the miracle would come from. She only knew she wouldn't give up. Not ever. One day after the party, Marcus called Sam into his office. But he didn't ask about work. He asked about Sophie. "Marcus, tell me about her. What kind of person is she?" Sam was surprised. But he told Marcus everything he knew. That Sophie had been orphaned young. That she had suffered through years in an orphanage. That she had been on her own since she was 16. That she worked 3 jobs at once, just to earn enough money. And then Sam told him about Maya, Sophie's sister, 24 years old, born with a heart condition, in urgent need of surgery, $200,000, a number Sophie didn't know how she could ever reach. "Sam, she works without stopping, sir. 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. She's getting thinner right before your eyes, but she never complains. She only says she's going to save her sister no matter what it takes." Marcus listened in silence, and inside him, a decision began to take shape. 1 week later, Sophie came home after a long, exhausting day. So tired she could barely stand, but the second she saw Maya sitting on the bed, smiling and waiting, all the exhaustion melted away. Maya excited, "You got a letter from the hospital." Sophie frowned. She didn't remember any appointment. She took the envelope, opened it, and started reading. Then she went completely still. Her eyes went wide. Her hands started to shake. She read it again and again, like she couldn't trust what she was seeing. The letter said the entire cost of surgery for Maya Sinclair had been paid, $200,000. Paid in full, not a single cent remaining. "Maya, what is it? Sophie, what's wrong?" Sophie didn't answer. Tears started rolling down her face, not tears of suffering, not the kind she knew so well, tears of happiness, of release, of someone who had just discovered that miracles are real. She searched the letter for a name. The person who paid, but there was none. Just 2 words, anonymous benefactor, but Sophie knew. She knew exactly who it was. Only one person could do this. Only one person knew her situation. Only one person had ever looked at her like she truly mattered. Marcus Grandview. Sophie held the letter to her chest and sobbed. She cried because Maya was going to be saved. She cried because the weight she had been carrying for 2 years had finally been lifted. She cried because someone in this world had seen her, cared about her, helped her. Without asking for a single thing back, she sat beside Maya's bed and took her sister's hand. "Sophie, you're going to have the surgery. You're going to get better. You're going to live." Maya, eyes wide. "Really? You got enough money?" Sophie, smiling through tears. "Someone helped us. A good person." That night, after Maya had fallen sound asleep, Sophie stood by the small apartment window. She looked out into the distance, toward the hill where the Grand View estate stood, lights glittering like stars. She didn't say a word, but the way she looked toward that house said everything, all her gratitude, all her respect, all the things words could never fully hold. 6 months later, spring had come to Chicago, warm breezes, gentle sunlight, and a new chapter for everyone in this story. Daniel Freeman was finally cleared completely. The court declared him innocent. The newspapers told his story. The whole world learned the truth, and most importantly, his daughter came back to him. She was 20 now. She wrapped her arms around her father and cried, telling him she was sorry she had ever doubted him. Daniel cried right along with her and told her he had forgiven her a long time ago. With the money Marcus repaid, Daniel opened a small electronics repair shop. It wasn't fancy, didn't make him rich, but it brought him joy and peace, and that was all he needed. Maya, Sophie's sister, had a successful surgery, 8 hours, but everything went even better than anyone hoped. The doctor said Maya would be able to live a full, healthy, normal life. When Sophie heard that, she dropped to her knees right there in the hospital hallway and sobbed. Not from sadness, but because for the first time in her life, she didn't have to be afraid of losing the person she loved most. Victoria accepted her sentence because she cooperated with the investigation and was honest. She got a suspended sentence instead of prison time. She began therapy, facing the deep wounds inside her that had shaped her into someone so cruel. Her journey toward change was still long, but she had taken the first step, and Sophie, the small, quiet girl who had dared to stand up in front of 300 powerful people, was promoted to event manager of the Grand View estate. She no longer had to work 3 jobs at once. She no longer had to wake up at 4 in the morning and collapse at midnight. She could finally live a normal life with steady work and enough income to care for herself and her sister. As for Marcus and Sophie, they didn't rush anything. They didn't put a label on what they were to each other. They just stayed close. Long conversations on the balcony as the sun went down. Hot cups of tea on cold winter mornings. Small smiles when their eyes met across a crowd. Moments of silence that somehow said more than any words could. One spring evening, Marcus and Sophie stood together on the balcony, looking out at a garden full of blooming flowers. A light wind drifted through, carrying the smell of roses and jasmine. Marcus soft and warm. "Thank you, Sophie. You made a difference just by being brave." Sophie turned to look at him, and she smiled, a real bright, full smile, like sunlight after a long, long rain. The first smile after so many years of just trying to survive. The smile of someone who had finally found peace, and for the first time in their lives, everything ended well. It ended with the truth brought into the light. It ended with justice being done. It ended with broken hearts beginning to heal. It ended with the peace that everyone deserved. This story leaves us with something real to think about. That the truth, no matter how long it's buried, will eventually rise. That justice, even when it comes late, is still so much better than never coming at all. That a person's dignity isn't found in their money or their status, but in how they treat the people around them. And that sometimes all it takes is one brave person standing up, and the whole world can change.